Dutch heavy lift specialist Weissmuller Transport receives inquiries from around the world for a wide variety of transports. Each morning at their head office in IJmuiden, the staff of Weissmuller Transport discusses the new inquiries.
We have received overnight this new inquiry of the Military Sea Lift Command through Weissmuller Houston. It looks very interesting in my opinion. It's the transportation of 3 minesweepers, initially located in the Persian Gulf, and they have to be transported out of Bahrain back to their home port, Seattle. Yeah, Frank has already looked into the matter from a dimension point of view, and it appears that these 3 ocean minesweepers do fit perfectly on a Super Servant.
That means we can make available the Super Servant 3 presently in Bombay, because that would fit in nicely.
Yeah, it fits in very well because viewing mobilization and viewing the loading window involved.
Frank, you have looked into it and it's technically possible?
I think it is feasible. Looking at the dimensions and the weights, they're only 700 tons, so weight-wise there's no problem. And looking at the scale models, there must be plenty of space to stow them without any overhang and with sufficient space for any additional cargo.
For each individual transport, Weissmuller makes precise calculations and loading plans using an in-house developed set of dedicated computer programs. This results in a comprehensive transport manual.
The docking plan, which we can show you. And here all the dimensions are given of the hard points where we can put the cribbing supports and the sea fastenings. But in this case, of course, the minesweepers have such little weight that we can use a wooden one instead of a steel one. So this will be a wooden construction with a steel support here, and again a wooden load spreader there.
Here to give you some good news. I just received a telephone call from the Military Sea Lift Command in Washington. We have been awarded the transport of the minesweepers and related equipment for loading between the 20th of February and March the 5th.
Monica.
Having been awarded the contract, head office informs the master of the Super Servant 3, which will carry out this transport. By satellite, a mobilization order is given to the vessel presently in Bombay. All heavy lift vessels of the Weissmuller fleet are equipped with modern communication systems, including Inmarsat. On the bridge, the captain gives orders to sail for Dubai. There, Weissmuller, with the help of a local contractor, will prepare the spacious deck of the heavy lift vessel before being able to take the 3 minesweepers and some additional cargo on board. The voyage from Bombay to Dubai takes 4 days and covers 1,300 nautical miles. On February the 24th, the Super Servant lies at the quay in Dubai. Work on deck can now begin. A few days later, Super Servant 3's sister ship, Super Servant 4, is moored alongside. She also awaits a new assignment. Dunnage is welded on deck. Standard sea fastenings are used to support the hulls of the minesweepers. These cradle blocks have to be carefully positioned according to the loading plan prepared at the office. More material is lifted on board. In total, 30 blocks have to be placed, 10 per minesweeper. Sections of wooden cribbing are cut to be installed on top of the steel sea fastenings. The cradle blocks are positioned such that they support the strong bulkheads of the minesweepers. Guideposts are installed to ensure the minesweepers are exactly in position when ready to deballast. The cradle blocks are shaped exactly to match the shape of the minesweeper hulls. The wooden blocks are secured to prevent them from floating. Although preparations have not been finished, Super Servant 3 will depart for Bahrain, where the minesweepers will be taken on board. The Super Servant 4 is shifted to make way for the Super Servant 3. Moorings are cast off, and the Super Servant 3 sets course for her loading location. During the voyage, work on deck continues in order to save time. Watched by the frigate of the US Navy, the heavy lift vessel arrives at her loading location where the water depth is checked before anchors are dropped. Preparations are nearly completed. The superintendent in charge of this transport checks the cribbing arrangements together with an independent surveyor and a US Navy representative. Meanwhile, the steel supports for the roll bars are welded to the deck. On the basis of the loading plan, every block is accurately measured. All blocks have to fit perfectly to make a smooth transport possible. Even old nails in the woodwork are to be removed. Holes are cut in the wooden blocks to accommodate protruding parts on the hull of the minesweepers. The cribbing on which the keels will rest is covered with plywood, so the minesweepers will sit gently on their carrier. All preparations are now finished. Welding and other equipment is loaded on board a small barge to be taken ashore together with crew from the contractor. The Super Servant 3 is prepared for submerging. Slowly, with a small stern trim, the heavy lift vessel submerges, ready to receive her cargo. On the bridge, the captain is at the panel, controlling the pumps and valves to fill the ballast tanks. The Super Servant 3 is one of a fleet of 8 semi-submersible heavy lift vessels. Her deck can be submerged to a maximum of 6 meters. After 6 hours, only the guideposts for lining up the cargo can be seen above the 5.5 meters submerged deck. First to be loaded is the USS Esteem, an ocean minesweeper also called MSO of the aggressive class. The MSOs are loaded by the float-on method, meaning that they are towed over the submerged deck with the assistance of tugs and then positioned with the winches of the heavy lift vessel. deck of the Super Servant measures 116 meters by 32 meters. Each minesweeper is about 50 by 8 meters, so there is enough room to accommodate the 3 ships. Next to go on board is the USS Enhance. She is accurately positioned by the winches of the Super Servant. The first MSO was launched in 1952. In total, 58 of these class of minesweepers were built. They have wooden hulls and non-magnetic engines. During the mid-60s, all MSOs were modernized. An MSO has a crew of 70 enlisted men and 6 officers. Ships of this class also serve navies of other NATO allies. The last minesweeper, the USS Conquest, arrives to be floated on board. A positioning line is taken to the vessel. Carefully, the USS Conquest is placed next to her sister ships. All MSOs are now exactly positioned above the deck of their carrier. Divers make a last inspection to see whether the MSOs fit perfectly on the cradles prepared for them, whereafter deballasting can begin.
Well, let me see if I've got that sound from.
During nightfall, deballasting is started in accordance to a carefully planned schedule. Stability is ensured during every phase of the deballasting operation, which takes approximately 6 hours. Slowly, the Super Servant rises, lifting her cargo out of the water. In total, 22,000 tons of water have to be pumped out of the 24 ballast tanks. After the deballasting operation, the heavy lift vessel returns to Bahrain. At the US Navy pier, sea fastenings are attached to secure the keels of the minesweepers. 4 patrol boats and some containers are also to be lifted on board. The minesweepers now stand high and dry. The US Navy uses this opportunity to clean the hulls of the MSOs. Weissmuller's superintendent in charge of the loading operation is Captain Herman van Raaphorst. He inspects whether his cargo sits perfectly on the blocks.
Starboard aft Conquest on frame 67. Shape of the blocks and the vessel matching. No overstressed areas visible. Block number 2, frame 67, port side aft, Conquest. Shape, blocks and ship matching very well. Block number 6, port side and ends, frame 46.
This way, all 30 blocks are checked. And what does the US Navy think of the operation so far?
We were initially required to start the operation with less than 18 knots of wind, less than half meter of seas. And that's the way things were. By the time the ships had gotten out and we were in position with the 3 ships, the divers had checked the blocking itself. The weather had started to get worse. In spite of the worsening weather, the operation was able to be carried off safely. We did that, and now they're pierside making final blocking arrangements for the transit. adding in the Weissmuller roller bars, or as we would call them, spur shores, and adding in additional stern supports for the transit.
The roll bars are attached to the steel supports made for them. Because of the low weight of the cargo, each MSO weighs 800 tons. The roll bars are made of wood. At the office, the exact position of each roll bar has been determined using the original drawings of the MSOs. They have to support the strong bulkheads. Based on a worst-case scenario, a total of 42 roll bars are needed to secure the 3 minesweepers in place during the voyage. When all sea fastenings are positioned, checked and rechecked, the Super Servant leaves the port of Bahrain. Sailing 45 days and covering 11,514 miles, destination of this transport is Seattle, capital of the state of Washington and home port of the 3 MSOs. There they are, the minesweepers brought home safely by the Super Servant 3. The following morning, the unloading operation is started. First, the 4 river patrol boats and other additional cargo is lifted off deck. Before the MSOs can be offloaded, the roll bars have to be removed. Again, local contractors are used to do this job. Work progresses smoothly. Because they are ahead of schedule, the subcontractor starts flushing the deck. In the afternoon, all sea fastenings are removed and the heavy lift vessel is taken to the discharge location in Seattle Harbor. In front of the Todd Marine Shipyard, anchors are dropped. On the bridge at the ballast control panel, the captain starts the ballasting operations. The tanks of the heavy lift vessel are opened. The deck submerges, and slowly the 3 minesweepers are lowered back into the water. When the Super Servant is submerged to the required depth, the MSOs are towed off, for which local tugs are already on standby. One by one, the USS Enhance, Conquest, and Esteem leave their trusted carrier. The superintendent and the surveyor accompany each MSO as they are towed off. Freed of her cargo, the heavy lift vessel rises out of the water, the deck showing the empty cradles of the MSOs. A job is finished. What new assignment is waiting for them? Cranes, a floating plant, or a rig? Almost anything is possible. Seattle has witnessed a successful ending of yet another Weissmuller transport operation. Weissmuller, a wise move.